You're listening to the Daily Sales Tips Podcast, and I'm your host, Scott Ingram. Today, our Sales Podcast Discovery series continues with Christie Walters and Jeff Bajorek, who together host the Why and the Buy podcast. Their trailer here is pretty cool because it gives you a really good feel of what their show is about and adds some value in just a couple of minutes. Check it out.
Hey, everybody, this is Jeff Bajorek, and I'm here with my co-host on the Why and the Buy podcast, Christie Walters, and we want to give you a tip today, and that is trust your process.
Trust your process came up in a conversation that we had recently with Catherine Adamick, and you can find Catherine at fixyourmindset.com. And we talked about what do you do when you hit that low in your year? You hit the month that just doesn't go the way you want, or maybe the big deal that doesn't close after you've been working on it for some time. How do you keep your mind in the right place? And Catherine talked about that is the time when you need to regroup and take a look at your process and trust that the process you have in place is the right process for you and that your low is not your new normal.
Well, and I think you have to realize, and she brought this up, and we talk about this a lot, Christy, that when you get to the top, you forget that you climbed somewhere, and you had to climb from somewhere that you didn't want to be.
Right.
And when you recognize that your valleys are just the space between peaks, that it makes a difference. And when you realize that your peaks mean that there is going to be another valley to get to that next spot, but there's another peak at the other end of it, that is really important. That is vital. So when you go through the highs and the lows, and I had a manager, I'm sure you did too, Christy, at some point that said, hey, you can't get too high with the highs, you can't get too low with the lows. Sure. I didn't understand what that meant until I realized and recognized that it meant that you have to appreciate the peaks and the valleys for what they are. They're going to be there. Have the perspective to appreciate them so you can work through them. And a great process will drive great results, but a focus on results tends to create a lot of frustration. So this is the kind of stuff that we talk about on our show. I would be remiss if I didn't put a shameless plug in this podcast for our podcast, but we are the Why and the Buy podcast, and we just want to remind everybody that listens to us that when you know your whys,
your hows and your whats get much better.
We'll talk to you soon.
For a link to the Why and the Buy podcast and to Christy and Jeff's LinkedIn profiles, click over to dailysales.tips/142. Then check out their show, and if you like it, subscribe. Then come back tomorrow for another great sales tip. Thanks for listening.